Yes, and welcome everybody to the Gamification Revolution, Season 3, and I'm your host, Gabe Zichermann. It's great to have you all with us here today. It's a gray but nonetheless nice New York day as we transition from spring to summer. And before we get started, I want to remind all of you that if you'd like to ask me questions, as it is every week here on the Gamification Revolution, and you're watching us live using Spreecast, you can ask your questions by clicking on the submit question or camera button. It may be in different places. You can pop the viewer out to look at it in more detail. Click on those submit question or camera buttons. I'll actually bring you on screen if you have a question that you'd like to ask face to face and you've got a camera working on your computer. Otherwise, you can ask your questions in text and join us as part of the chat. And happy to answer anything and everything that gets on your mind. I'm going to um, be a little bit, I'm going to speak a bit extemporaneously today and talk about some of the things that I'm thinking about as they relate to gamification and engagement. And I'll definitely welcome your input and insight and questions and hoping to answer those as best I can. So just kicking off today's discussion, I want to, many of you may have seen a post that I recently wrote on gamification.co, which, as you know, is the site where we talk about gamification engagement, that talked about my birthday. So it was, in fact, my birthday this past week. And I realized that, it's been an amazing ride since we started the whole gamification movement as little as kind of 3 years ago at the first G Summit and leading up to the last G Summit that we just had in April in San Francisco, which was amazing. One of the things that I realize is it's all this great work that everybody's doing with gamification that's so, exciting and interesting. And at the closing of G Summit 2013, I wanted to kind of change the tone a little bit, change what I talk about a little bit, and I worked pretty hard on a new talk. And some of you will have seen, some of you will get an opportunity to kind of see this talk and engage with it, both through the one that I made at the one for Gamification Summit, as well as a talk that I gave for Google, my new Authors at Google talk, which is coming up shortly. But as part of this post and as part of the, and as part of actually of that talk, we just posted this live. I think we actually just posted it live on my birthday on Monday itself, inviting you guys to check out the new keynote. And if you haven't seen it yet, it talks a little bit about the background of the gamification industry, how I came here, the various aspects of the movement that have brought stuff together. And I make a couple of relatively controversial assertions in the video. And that's why it's one of the things that I'm hoping everybody gets a chance to look at and give me feedback on. And one of the main assertions that I've made in the video, which I think many of you will find interesting, is I have this increasing belief that seems obvious to me that autism and ADHD and other some of these other kind of continua new sort of neurological models, what some people call kind of like this neurodiversity concept, where different people with different things like autism spectrum disorders and ADHD, that this neurodiversity really suggests not a kind of medicalized problem in humanity, but rather this notion that potentially autistic people represent the next generation, the next evolution of humanity. And I think from my observation, this sort of new technological skill that people with certain kinds of autism spectrum disorders have, their ability to interact with technology in a new way and engage with it and be smarter and think faster, and really think differently, to kind of paraphrase Apple, has what is one of the most interesting and controversial kind of ideas in the world. And so one of the things that I lay out in this talk, and the link is up there for you on gamification.co, one of the things that I lay out in this talk is the question: what if this autistic community, what if this incredible growth in autism, you look at the numbers, it's growing so rapidly, it's not going to take long before a large percentage of the population, 20% or more, and maybe even within 10 years or 15 years, 20% of the population or more will have a condition like autism or ADHD or both of them. And those conditions will have a significant impact on the world that we live in. And at that point, those people will no longer, they won't be unusual in terms of, they'll still be small in number, but they won't be like, a condition that we medicalize, as much as they will be a new kind of human, a sort of new evolutionary step in humanity. And I think this is actually very important for people who design engagement and who think about it. And that's why I wanted to kind of share it as my closing keynote at G Summit, because we need to start thinking about this neurodiversity, these different kind of brain processes when we're actually designing engaging experiences, the workplace of the future, the company of the future, the products of the future. We need to start considering these people not as like a corner case group, but actually as a large percentage, a large chunk of the market that we're trying to address, and how they interact with product, services, other people, the workplace, and so on is really different. And they bring different things to the table. Now, interestingly enough, set against all of this context, today the news comes out that SAP itself is making a pretty big bet on the autistic and launching a recruitment drive specifically targeted at people with autism to bring them in to SAP and have them join the organization and bring their unique skills to the table. And I think this is very interesting. As many of you know, SAP has for a long time been a leader in the gamification space, been very advanced in their thinking about gamification and what they bring to the table there. And to me, it's very interesting that both a company at the forefront of thinking about how to use gamification engaging design would also want to bring the autistic into their workforce in an active kind of predictable, forecasted way is very interesting to me. But what I found since giving the talk a couple of times, I've been surprised, but pleasantly, at the number of people who sort of disagree with my core assertion and who feel like, that perhaps autism, spectrum disorders, or ADHD, this kind of neurodiversity, may not be, something that's, a fait accompli, or maybe something that will level off, or they just don't really believe those numbers. They don't believe that, the 1 in 50 kids or something today that takes medicine for ADHD, that's just overdiagnosis, for example, or unnecessary. Everything is attributable to overdiagnosis, or most of it. And I want everyone, everyone who's responsible for creating engagement in their organization, so that you thinking about how you're going to use gamification in your company, thinking about it for your products, thinking about it for health, education, whatever. You need to start considering these people on this autistic ADHD community as the next kind of consumer. You need to think about them differently, you need to design differently. So what does that mean? So the first thing that you need to think about is the kinds of social interactions that people with autism spectrum disorder are interested in are often different from the ones that motivate the broader population at large. So you've heard me talk. If you're a student of gamification, you'll know that player types are very important. In the classic one, the Bartle's player types of achiever, explorer, socializer, and killer as being the four kind of principal types of players that we want to interact with. That those socializers represent the majority of the population today. As the kind of autistic next generation human, let's just start calling them that. As a next generation human kind of comes online, what kinds of social interactions they want to have and the way they want to have them are going to change significantly. It's not necessarily that they're less social. They just are more comfortable having social expression, having social interaction as mediated by technology. So having in the context of game-like experiences rather than in a broad social context. So it's possible that many of these apps that are focused on getting people to go out and do activities together, or getting them to go out and eat together, meet each other in a venue or something like that, those will become increasingly important rather than less important. They're going to become more important. It's also possible that they may fail because ultimately they tend to depend on this final moment between the player and each other, between people in the system, where they have to forge, what we think of as authentic face-to-face social bonds, kind of on their own, without the support of the technology. So at some point, that kind of technology, lets you go. The application sort of lets you go, and you've got to like connect with people in the real world, face-to-face. It's entirely conceivable that for this next generation human, that won't actually be possible, or that will be something that even with technology as a support, they won't really be able to do effectively on their own because they don't necessarily have those skills. So we may need to extend these kind of networking software experiences to, for this next generation human, actually beyond just finding someone, but actually like in the date itself. Think about something like a dating application like an OkCupid or a Match.com, Right now, they just end once they make the connection. But maybe we actually need to extend that experience for this next generation. Or maybe what we need to do is help people actually focus those with conditions like ADD or like ADHD, help them actually focus on their work in a way that is goes far beyond the line that we think is acceptable to draw today. So normally we want to kind of throw out, let's do this challenge, and you go off and you do this challenge, and then you come back and you say, hey, I did this challenge, and yay, you get positive reinforcement in the kind of classic model of challenge achievement and the dopamine loop. But what if for this next generation consumer, that's not sufficient? What if we literally have to constantly sort of be, I don't know if this is the right way of thinking about it, but buzzing, binging, sort of, pushing them back into focus over time, because they're going to easily lose focus on on what it is that they have to do. So one critical thing to think about in design is if, 10 years from now, 20% of the population has this particular condition, or has a condition where they're going to need your additional support, your additional, context and additional kind of encouragement, what does that mean? And what does that mean for gamified design? So I'm sure, like many other people, you'll find my talk, the link to which is up on the screen, you'll find it controversial and interesting. And I actually am really interested in having this discussion with you. I'd really love to know, whether or not, you disagree with me. What I've heard consistently is people, since that talk, people saying, hey, that's a really good talk, but I don't agree with your premise about autistic and people with ADHD. And I'm really open to having that discussion. I think it's obviously we won't know until it actually comes out, but I really am interested in that. Now, some of you who are watching probably noticed that I'm wearing this shirt that says "Gamify this shirt." If you weren't at Gamification Summit, you didn't get a chance to see this shirt and win one of these shirts on site at G Summit. But what you can do now, after Gamification Summit, April in San Francisco 2013, you can still get access to actual videos from G Summit. You can buy access to these incredible videos. Features 70 speakers talking about a wide range of topics with engagement, everything from healthcare and education, government, marketing, human resources. We had industry luminaries like Jesse Schell, like Will Wright, fascinating speakers, Andrea Krzyzewski, Jeremy Haymans, myself, all kinds of exciting talks, wide range of them available to you. You can purchase access at gsummit.com right now. Head over there, get access to those videos if you weren't at G Summit. We can't give you the t-shirt, but we can give you all this amazing content and information. I'm sure that you're going to find it super fascinating. Please visit it. If you have questions or things you want to ask, just as a reminder here on the Gamification Revolution, click the buttons that say submit a question or camera, and I'll bring you on screen. So keying off of that, keynote discussion that we were talking about at Gamification Summit, one of the other things that many of you who were at the event and who follow what we do over here might have seen is an application called Memecube. And so I want to talk to you about a little bit about Memecube today and talk about the process and about building Memecube, and lay this out as a kind of case study in gamified design and encourage you to take a look at it. So if you're interested in gamification design, Memecube may be a product that you want to take a look at and see kind of how we did what we did, how it works. You can check it out at memecu.be, or you can also check out dopa.mn, which is dopamine, where we built Memecube. And so basically, more or less, here's the thing. You run a conference or you're at a live event, people want to live tweet the content. So there's a small group of people typically who get really excited about what the speakers are saying, and they start tweeting things out. But you find that, that can be really intimidating. It's really hard to find the best ideas from a speech. It's hard to see how much social action is actually taking place. You got to put a hashtag on every talk. How do you differentiate one talk from another? A hashtag just deals with the whole conference. If you're the kind of person who only wants to consume content at a particular event, you don't want to create content at an event, it can be pretty frustrating and annoying to find the best ideas from the event. There's lots of duplication. So you and I are both, a speaker is talking in a session, you and I are both interested in taking notes, so we both start taking notes and we're duplicating each other's content, and no one can find it, no one can see it. So Memecube was a solution that we designed to kind of deal with this issue. It helps facilitate the best ideas in a given live discussion, whether that's in a conference or other setting, but if there's a speaker or some kind of topic and folks are kind of live tweeting it, Memecube allows the best ideas to quickly bubble to the top. The audience can retweet them. They surface at the top of the experience, and allow users to quickly see who's the most insightful user watching a particular session, who's sharing the most content, who's getting the most retweets, and also compare different speakers at a given event, who's getting the most attention, which speakers are getting the most amount of attraction or action from the attendees. So seeing a kind of social meaningfulness score, both for people who create content who are viewing it, so who are live tweeting it or taking notes, and also for the people who are actually speaking and showing you those leaderboards, and making the process of social engagement with the conference a little bit more fun and a little bit more feedbacky and a little bit more frenzy. If you know the 3 F's of gamified design: feedback, friends, and fun, that I talk about all the time. So Memecube was really designed to facilitate that idea. I just threw up a little bit of a screenshot here so you can check out what it is that I'm talking about. For example, for every session in Memecube, so basically we set about to build this application called Memecube. And the way that Memecube works is it starts by taking in all the conference data every session. Then when you go to a particular session, you check into that session with your Twitter credentials. It could be a private network. You don't have to use Twitter. We just chose to use Twitter. And then inside of each session, as somebody's speaking, like I would be speaking now, if I'm saying interesting things, if the speaker is saying interesting things, you can, quickly kind of make a comment on that. So actually record what it is that the speaker is saying. And that becomes an actual tweet that gets tweeted out over Twitter, but also quickly shows up in Memecube, and there's kind of a live view, and you can quickly see what people are saying. You can vote up by retweeting. Retweeting is like a vote. So as we were kind of doing this thought process, we were like, okay, well, what would a vote look like? And it turns out Twitter actually has that concept in the form of retweet. So you can click the retweet button, and that automatically votes up an idea that somebody shared, and then the list is kind of sorted in real time. It's quite pretty. Built with the latest technology. It sorts kind of all the views in real time and shows you what everybody's talking about in real time, what the best ideas are. Also shows you the newest ideas, so you can sort of switch the view and see these memes by newest idea first. You can also quickly create content. And as you progress through, and of course in real time, you can see for every session that there's kind of score across the top. There's how many speakers, there's how many people have checked in, how many tweets there are, how many retweets there are. You can easily see, give the session a rating at the top, a score rating. Now, what's also sort of interesting about it is, we built in, so this was a fairly effective model, and we built in some other ideas. So as you use Memecube, you're exposed to a series of challenges as you're using it. So, you get some quick rewards in terms of badging for your first tweet, for your first first time you get retweeted, the first time you retweet people, when you reach certain thresholds or milestones for tweeting and retweeting, you'll get some positive reinforcement from users. And then also, and I'm sure Ivan will help us probably get some additional sort of views of this so you can see it, and you can see all of it at Memecube, memecu.be. What we also have is kind of views of the overall sort of progressions that users go through. So there's a series of challenges that users sort of complete that are meta challenges across a whole event, and then also a series of leaderboards associated with the event as a whole. The top tweeters, the top retweeted, the most tweeted and retweeted sessions, and speakers, and so on. So you can see kind of this concept, and we called that the zeitgeist of the event. So you can see the most interesting ideas from the event, the most interesting speakers from the event, and so on. Those are called the zeitgeist. And so Memecube was really an interesting case study. We built it for the first time at G Summit 2012 in San Francisco. And it went over well. We had some technical issues with scaling. It's pretty hard to get something to work, for hundreds and hundreds of people in real time. We had some scaling issues, but we went back to the drawing board and really tried to, hammer out some of the behavior issues and some of the scaling. And we just had like astonishing results the second time around. We had, this amazing stuff and did some really cool things with it. So for example, the average Memecube user sent about 20 tweets per person, which is a very high number for, over the course of 2 days. We had, literally thousands of, you know, tweets and retweets for our, from our kind of 500, 600 attendees of the conference, which were pretty exciting. Here's kind of a main screen view of it that we've added to the view, so many of you can see it. The different prizes and the missions that were given, and the overarching zeitgeist of the application. So we had, literally thousands of tweets and retweets overall. The attendees, of course, and the speakers really loved it. They loved being able to see, how people perform and what their reaction is. But one of the most interesting things that we did with it, which I thought was pretty cool, was we had these sort of series of prizes that you could unlock, by being, for example, the first person to get retweeted 5 times, by being the people who got, the most number of tweets, and person who checked into the most number of sessions overall. So all of these things sort of triggered you earning various kind of prizes. The big prize in the conference really was probably one of the coolest things we did, which was a secret session. And the secret session basically went to the top 10 players on Memecube. So we had a separate scoring system that incorporated tweets and retweets and also check-ins, all the different activities that we wanted users to take, which, as you can see, is not just about tweeting. It's not just about retweeting. It also has, checking in across a range of different topic areas, checking into a number of different sessions, checking into a streak of sessions. So all those different things were reflected in the point system and also in the mission system. And so if you were the top scorer in day one, you got this kind of secret message from us to meet me at a particular location and time. And you got invited, the top 10 Memecubers actually got invited to a secret session with me, which was a kind of one-on-one session that was a secret, took place at a secret location on the second day. And people really valued that. And so we had this sort of unfettered small group discussion, which is one of my favorite things at the event as well, at G Summit. This idea where you can get this very intimate kind of one-on-one time. It's all based on kind of scoring. So here you can see I just put up the leaderboards for Memecube up here across a range of the standings, the tweets that received the most the tweets that were retweeted the most often. Funny to say the word tweeting and retweeting the most often. The events with the greatest scores and so on. So we had to kind of think about all the different events and activities that we cared about users doing. What were the different things that we wanted people to do? Create a point system that reflected that, then track those things in real time and provide people with, kind of direct feedback on their performance, along the way, creating leaderboards that, effectively showed what it was that we wanted to share. And fundamentally kind of packaging all of those things up into what we think of as the zeitgeist, which is what's happening in an event right now. What's exciting and interesting in an event now? What's the most interesting ideas and who are the most interesting people? And, it was a really fascinating exercise. So while the average person was tweeting, about 20 times, the average person who used Memecube was tweeting about 20 times. The top people were tweeting, 200 times or 300 times over the course of the event. And they took it very seriously. I always remember one quote from one of the top retweeters, one of the top Memecubers, who, when we were in the secret session, and they said, oh God, I'm getting kind of nervous. I've been away from Memecube for so long, meaning at this point, 15 minutes, they had been away from the app while we were in the secret session. They were like, I've been away from Memecube for so long, I feel uncomfortable a little bit. I don't know what's going on, And so, we had a very profound ability to change people's behavior in a short period of time by narrowly focusing in on the handful of activities that we thought were important for them to do, by creating a point system that effectively reflected the actions that we wanted them to take, but also having a series of missions and challenges that they could take in a kind of more horizontal way across the application. So getting them to not only do one activity intensely, meaning like tweet intensely or retweet intensely, but also do this other stuff like check into events and check into sessions over time and so on. Check into the vendors as well, the sponsors of the event who are part of the equation. By doing all this stuff in an iterative way, we were able to create something with a more kind of compelling, longer story arc. The reaction to it, of course, has been tremendous. Many of the people who were there and got a chance to use it really loved it. We've been asked to bring Memecube to other companies' events, which has been very exciting for us. And something that Justin Shear, my co-founder in the enterprise, has been really excited about, and Tavi Linma, who also helped us a great deal with Memecube, have been so engaged around. But so we've been, bringing Memecube to other folks. If you're interested in checking it out, go to the website, memecu.be, check it out, take a look at it. If you want to bring it to your event, let me know. Happy to talk with you more about it. And also, we're going to continue to write about it and use it as a case study. And I encourage all of you, if you are interested in gamified design, take a look at what we did and feel free to ask us questions about, how we did it, what sorts of things we learned about it, what some of the case studies are. I do want to share one more interesting piece of learning for you about Memecube, which was fascinating to me. The piece that we didn't really work on at all in the application was getting people to use it in the first place, which was an interesting sort of oversight, right? So for people who actually used Memecube, we had tremendous engagement levels. We had numbers that are, off the chart and completely unexpected. But if people didn't use Memecube, they didn't use it. And we really didn't put any effort into driving the virality of the application among users. We just sort of figured that, hey, you'll use it because, you're going to use it because we told you to use it, or because, the speaker's standing up at the front and they're standing up at the front, I'm standing up at the front telling you to use Memecube all the time. But still, we didn't get everyone to use it. So one thing that we're going to kind of work on is how we get that onboarding process to work better, how we get more people into the flow. And it's a good lesson for anybody working on gamification in a closed system like in HR, that you can't just expect your users to use it. You have to make sure that your users are encouraged to use it, that there's viral hooks to get them to keep coming back and using it. And while it may be very powerful and compelling experience for some, if you don't make sure that you're onboarding more people into it, that's where it will live. No matter how fun the thing is, if you force people to use it, it's not that much fun. Last but not least, before we leave today, just briefly want to remind you about the Gamification Revolution, my new book, which came out just before the conference, and many of you, of course, are familiar with the name because it's the name of this Spreecast, it's the name of this web show and our podcast, and also the title of the talk. And the Gamification Revolution is available at gamrev.com. You can check out the book itself and also the gamified social reading app that we built called Read Social. And we're getting really interesting kind of feedback and results from folks, and I'm very curious to hear what you think about the book, which continues to win positive plaudits from folks, and also the app that we built and the gamified system that we built around reading, where we're working hard to transform kind of the reading experience. But one thing that I am struck by, and I want to kind of close today by bringing this full circle for all of you, the gamification revolution really requires each and every one of you, everybody out there who's focused on engagement, for whom engagement is an important key performance indicator in your job, in your company. It requires each and every one of you to make a serious effort, obviously, to change the world around you by creating more engagement. And in order to do that, you've got to become an expert in the key tenets, the key pillars of gamified design: games, loyalty programs, and behavioral economics. You got to look at the case studies that make up that are interesting to you, and that's what I always recommend for folks to do. Get on gamification.co, look at the case studies, pick up a copy of Gamification Revolution, check out the case studies in the book. Look at those case studies that are interesting and informative to you, the ones that you think are relevant, the ones that are doing the things that you want to be able to do with your company, organization, a nonprofit, or business. And string together in those case studies what it is that you think is important for your enterprise. Extract the interesting ideas, get certified in gamified design, read about the basics, learn the methodology for how you apply gamification and engagement science to your particular product, service, or idea. You are the people making the gamification revolution happen. You're the ones going out there and changing the world. And it's your work, it's your hard work, it's your hard design, your hard work at creating great designs and changing behavior that fuels this entire movement, and that frankly is the energy on which I thrive and helps us move forward. So thank you very much, everybody, for making this gamification revolution such a meaningful experience, for going out and changing the world, and also for giving me such a great birthday gift in the form of all the awesome things that you do. Uh, I'm Gabe Zichermann, your host. This has been another episode of the Gamification Revolution podcast. Follow me on Twitter at gzicherm. We'll be back next week with another episode and another awesome guest and discussion about how we create engagement in the world in every facet of business, enterprise, and government. In the meantime, thanks again for watching or listening. I'm your host, Gabe Zichermann. Keep having fun.